This post from Lee at Overland Out and About, along with my response, would lead us to some very interesting adventures at Carrizo Plain. Keep watching to find out what happened next. We all met up on a Friday, and it was my first time meeting the crew with Lee, Ranjib, Dennis, and Garry, so we spent most of the day just tackling some easy trails. After a visit to Padrones Spring, we're headed now to Traver Ranch for a pit stop and to meet back up with Dennis, who unfortunately suffered a vehicle problem and had to head back into town, into Maricopa. So we're hoping once we meet him here that is all resolved and we can continue our trip. And indeed, Dennis did get his problem resolved, so we're taking the quick drive now over to the Matre Ranch on the northeast side of Soda Lake Road. We four-wheel travelers take in the sights of the Matre Ranch, an old homestead seemingly placed right at the center of the plain. With crumbling structures, wind-worn fences, and long-abandoned behemoths of agriculture gradually fading back into nature, it's a quiet marker of the people who once tried to make a life out here on the fault line. We stopped to explore, reflect, and take in the stillness that seems to stretch on forever. With that, it's time to hit the road and find a place to camp for the night. Well, the KCL and Selby campgrounds were both full, but we found ourselves an even better option in this dispersed camping spot at the end of a trail next to a dry river, and really, you can't get much better than this.
The next level of sophistication. Well, it's just like that. Just like this, right? And then it burns, this will burn for a while. It's so dense.
Having solved many of the world's most pressing problems around the campfire, we're all ready for a good night's sleep and a full day of wheeling in the morning. Wow, what a wonderful campsite, and I think the drone footage really shows you how vast this Carrizo Plain area is and just how remote the campsite was. Pretty amazing. So we're all headed out now for a full day of wheeling. We're going to head over to KCL campground and meet with Sanjay, who's going to join us for today's adventures. So let's head over to Soda Lake Road and drive the short distance to the KCL campground. Whoa. Wow, there's a white Tacoma completely off the road and in the ditch. And this is not one of our party. The vehicle actually belongs to a couple of young people who had been in an accident, obviously, here. And thankfully both were uninjured, which is a lot more than we can say about the truck. Thankfully, with the winch on Lee's truck, we were able to get this out of the ditch and back onto the road. And we put it back onto four wheels, but this vehicle isn't driving anywhere. The radiator is completely destroyed and it looks like there's significant frame damage. So we stuck around long enough to make sure that a tow truck was called and is on the way. Well, we spent a couple of hours out of our day making sure the young people were taken care of. Obviously, we pulled the vehicle out of the ditch. As I said, we made sure the tow company was called and is on its way. And we also made sure that the kids could communicate with their parents. So we felt it was the very least we could do, but we did come out here to do some wheeling. Let's do some wheeling. Just pausing here to open the cattle gate, probably one of several that will open and then close behind us. So we're basically crossing the valley floor of the Carrizo Plain Valley, headed to the Temblor Mountains, which I guess are on the northeast side of the valley. So we're gonna head up towards the Temblor Mountains and check out some of the trails up in the hills over on that side.
there. And this is not the steepest part.
At this point, Sanjay and Dennis, perhaps wisely, have opted to sort of take a bypass. So that leaves it to Lee, Ranjib, and myself to tackle this pretty steep looking incline. And I think we're basically headed from Hurricane Road up to Temblor Ridge Road via this unnamed road. Yeah, let's see how this goes. Okay, we're approaching a point now where Lee, on a previous video on his channel, had actually turned around because what followed this was too steep to tackle solo, I guess. So, there are 3 of us today. Let's see how this goes.
Oh, it's that way.
Okay, Ranjib is going next, and I can just about see the top of Lee's vehicle over on the other side. I'm guessing that means it's probably pretty steep if I can only see the top. Okay, my turn. Here we go. Holy cow. Well, I'll say that if you looked straight ahead, straight in front of you, it didn't look so bad, you know, as you're on it. But if you happen to look out of your side window, man, you could really see how steep that was, and my goodness, that was pretty steep. And I have been told that that isn't the steepest part of what's ahead of us. That should give you a taste of Temblor Ridge Road, and we actually did continue from here several more miles, and the road got a lot trickier and steeper in those sections, but I must admit, due to a combination of battery trouble on my camera anyway, and just the concentration and sheer white-knuckleness of going over some of those roads, that we didn't capture any video of the latter section of Temblor Ridge Road. And at this point we have regrouped with Dennis. So the four of us are going to camp tonight. We actually saw a pretty good camping location on our first day, so headed over there. And after a pretty hectic day of four-wheeling, which was a ton of fun, I think we're probably going to have an early night tonight. And we're all going to head out tomorrow morning to our respective home bases. Well, a pretty lazy start today as we prepare ourselves for the road to head back home. And I do want to thank Lee for organizing this trip and for inviting me along. It was a ton of fun. I had an absolute blast hanging out with such a cool group of people, so thanks Lee, thanks Ranjib, thanks Dennis, and thanks also to Garry and Sanjay. Also, thank you to Lee for providing all of the drone footage that you've seen in this video. So I hope you enjoyed the video. It's a little different to some of my previous formats, having multiple people, multiple vehicles included. So drop a comment if you like this content. And if you did enjoy the video, we'd very much appreciate a like. It makes a huge difference to our channel. And please subscribe if you want to see more of our videos. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.